and we are here with 3 brand new contestants to test their knowledge of New York City monuments and various items so that they can compete to win the title of New York City's Best Tour Guide. Now, because tomorrow's Memorial Day, this is a Memorial Day themed episode, so each round will kind of tie into that theme. But before we get into that, I want to go ahead and introduce our judges today. So up first is Miss Val. Miss Val is a former operations member of the Experience First team and New York City tour guide. Say hi to the group. All right, and then next up we have Mr. Remy Germanario. Remy is a New York City legendary tour guide and an actor in New York City. So Remy, say hi to the group.
Hi, I mean, I'm no tour guide Bobby, but thank you for saying.
Who is?
I'm thrilled to be back.
And last, but certainly not least, is Miss Dara Mahali, who is the operations manager for our California locations, San Francisco and Los Angeles. She also has done some work in New York City as well. Say hi to the group.
Hey y'all, good luck.
Fantastic. So those are our judges, ladies and gentlemen. But you probably care a little bit more about meeting today's contestants. So all hailing currently from New York City. I think everyone's currently there at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong when I get to you. But first up, we have Miss Allison Munn.
Hi. Technically, I'm in New Jersey, but we're just across the river.
It's the same thing. It's the 6th borough, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Definitely.
And next up, we have Mr. Frank. I don't know how to say your last name.
Oh, girl.
Oh, no.
Rude.
Paiva.
You get Remy's last name, but not my last name. Rude. I get an extra point to begin with. It's Paiva, yes, just like dessert. And I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah.
I'm an awful person. You're in Brooklyn. Well, last but not least, we have, and I'm going to butcher this one, so I'm just going to say the first name and she can say the last one, is Miss Helen.
Helen Zinsner, also from across the pond in New Jersey, close to Allison.
Ah, fantastic.
Jersey City, but you know.
2 people from the 6th borough today. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before, today we are going to have a Memorial Day themed episode. So for our first round, we are going to be looking at some famous, iconic New York City monuments. A popular thing to do when there isn't a quarantine for many tourists visiting the city on holidays like Memorial Day is to check out some of these famous monuments. So we are going to be testing our contestants' knowledge on these very famous spots that many people who visit New York City come to see. Now, first up, we do have Miss Allison. Now, just before we jump in and I show the slide, I want to give our viewers kind of a rundown how this is going to work. Each of our contestants is going to get a slide of a famous New York City monument. They will have 2 minutes to go ahead and give a tour guide spiel about the monument itself. Now, for these, I have a feeling that our guides probably know the exact information, but if they don't, they're going to be forced to make something up on the fly, which sometimes happens when you're out there with a group and someone points to something and asks, what is that? So they will have 2 minutes and they will be judged on the following criteria. Now, just one moment. The first one will be style and tone. They can receive up to 2 points for that from each judge. The second one is clarity. Do they make their point clearly? They get 2 points for that as well, or up to 2 points. The third one is engagement. Do they display enthusiasm on the topic being presented? Again, up to 2 points for that marker there. The fourth one is believability. Did you believe that their story was true? Again, it doesn't have to be, but the important thing is whether or not the story that they're telling is believable to the group. And last but not least is recovery. On the streets of New York City, there are a lot of distractions that can come your way. And we have our special DJ, Mr. AJ, who will be throwing some sound effects during each of these spiels to our contestants to try to throw them off. The last thing that they will be judged on is how well they recover from that distraction. Again, up to 2 points. So all in all, from each judge, they can receive a total of 10 points, which will be averaged out Now, at the end of round one, we will take the 2 contestants with the highest scores to progress to round 2. Now, in the event that there is a tie, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a sudden death round where our guides who have tied will look at the same image and have 1 minute to tell their best story about the image presented. So, Allison, are you ready to jump in and begin?
Let's do this.
Let's do it. All right, so I will show you the image. You can take a moment to digest it, come up with your thoughts, just a very brief moment, and then we will start the timer for 2 minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right, 1 second. There we go. And Allison, this is your monument in New York City. Now, because all of these monuments are not only famous for the monument itself, they're also celebrating a famous person who has something to do with New York. So you will be judged on both. It's not just the monument, but who it is meant to commemorate. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 minutes on the timer. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
Okay, this is, yeah, imagine. This is in Central Park on the west side, just across the street from the Dakota, a very famous apartment building. The Dakota was one of those first apartment buildings that was really saying, hey, wealthy New Yorkers, you can live in an apartment, not just a townhouse. And one wealthy New Yorker who lived there, actually I should say 2, John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And it's actually at the Dakota that John Lennon was unfortunately shot. And the cops that showed up, the story about them is that they realized very quickly that they didn't have time to wait for the ambulance. So they actually put him in the back of the cop car to try to get him to the hospital, but unfortunately did not survive. For those who don't know the name, I should mention John Lennon of the Beatles, who then went off and did some of his own stuff and wrote the very famous song, Imagine, an absolutely beautiful song. And why is this in Central Park? Well, during the 1970s, the city was really struggling with finances, couldn't support the parks. And so by the 1980s, the city was looking into ways to help support their parks, clean them up, make them safer for everyone, and really started asking wealthy New Yorkers, can you help us with the park? Can you help donate some money and we'll, a little section of the park will be your section of the park. Yoko Ono donated some money. This was her section of the park and created a little monument to her late husband and this absolutely beautiful song. How are we doing? Yes. It's a super popular place today. It's funny, they ask that everyone be quiet there, but so many people come along with their guitars and will try to strum out Imagine or some other John Lennon or Beatles song. Sometimes in tune, sometimes not, but it's a really neat area of the city, and especially Central Park, to go and visit and spend a few minutes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Allison. Now, judges, you have the opportunity to ask her some questions about this famous New York City monument. We are going to start with Judge Val.
Hi, Allison.
Hey.
So my question about this monument is, how can I get there?
Like I said, it's on the Central Park, the west side. If you want to take the train directly up there, you can take the orange line or the blue line. Off the top of my head, I don't 100% remember exactly what train stop it's off of, but I want to say about 77th Street. So you'd want to make sure if you check if you need to be on a local train or an express train, because the express trains don't stop at every stop. Or you can just walk up the west side of Central Park, follow the music, and I'm sure you'll find it.
Technical difficulty. Hi, fantastic. Thank you, Val. All right, next up is Remy.
Now, haven't I seen the Dakota in a movie or two before?
It's very likely you did.
Wasn't it in Rosemary's Baby?
Yes. Oh my gosh, you know your movies. You know your horror films.
I do.
Yes, actually, Rosemary's Baby takes place in the Dakota.
Fantastic. Thank you, Remy. And last but certainly not least, Miss Dara.
Hey, Allison. I actually have never seen this particular monument in Central Park, and I'm curious, for people you've taken on tour, what is their response generally? Do they care? Are they moved? What's the reaction like?
In my experience, people that I take there, they're like, oh, that's cool. all those people are playing guitar out of tune, but you know, it's cool that it's here. I think the story about it's neat. The story of the Dakota, about how it came to be there. But it's kind of something lovely to see, take your photo with, and then move on to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Allison. Now, judges, please go ahead and make your final scores. I do want to go ahead and briefly plug, there is another thing on Experience First website at the moment. There is actually a tour guide competition that all of you viewers can go ahead and participate in. If you head to the website, which I will go ahead and get and tell you at the end of the episode, I believe it's a video clip that you can create your own narration for. And if you win, you'll win some free tours with the company. So like I said, at the end of the episode, I'll go ahead and give you that link and you can check it out and maybe you can be New York City's very best tour guide. All right, judges, are you all set? Fantastic. Well, next up we have Mr. Frank. Now, Mr. Frank, are you ready?
Again without the last name.
Paiva.
This is how all game shows, right? Where I'm supposed to be antagonistic to the hosts.
Exactly. Well, that means you're gonna win, right?
We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, Frank, are you ready to receive your slide?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, here we go. So Frank, this is your famous New York City monument. Now take a moment to look at this monument. Got it? Seen it?
Let me take a look. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, there are 2 minutes on the clock. And if you're ready, we're going to start in 3, 2, and 1.
So first of all, welcome to Times Square. This is the second most visited tourist attraction in the United States. The first one is the Las Vegas Strip. Welcome. We're right here in the center of it all in Times Square. And Times Square as we know it today really began in 1904. That is the year that the subway system opened. And when the subway system opened, it was kind of a democratization of New York City. It was so much easier to get from so many different parts of the city to the center of everything. And Times Square was the center of everything because it was the hub of all of those new subway lines. So as this area develops at the beginning of the 20th century, we start to see different personalities develop. On one side of Times Square, you can see the Father Duffy statue. That was a chaplain who served in World War I, who was important to the religious history of this area. But who you can see on, and see right now we got a show going on right here in the middle of Times Square. You don't have to pay to go to a Broadway show, although we would love you to do that and check out one of the 41 Broadway shows playing. But sometimes you can get a little bit of free music in the middle of everything here. But who you're looking at here is a man named George Cohan. He was known as kind of the first triple threat. Not only was he a dancer, an actor, a singer, he produced, he composed, anything you can think of he did to put the show on. So to sort of commemorate that here in the center of the theater district, which is mainly today what Times Square is known for, other than the fabulous billboards that you see around us here, we have this statue to commemorate in his honor. You might remember a movie with James Cagney where he played him about his life, Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's on a lot of people's radar. And it's just a great place to start our adventure into Times Square in the theater district.
All right. Well, thank you, Frank.
Is that, am I allowed to talk back now, or are people asking me questions?
Oh, people are asking you questions in a different.
You mean, so like okay, then let's finish the questions and then I'll ask one of my own.
Fantastic. Well, we are going to start with Mr. Remy this time. So Remy, whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Oh gosh, what question do I have? I'm a member of the Actors Equity Association. Did George Cohan like the Actors Equity Association?
So the Actors Equity Association, here's the thing. They were really important as the theater community was building. In fact, they were founded in 1913 and their headquarters is just off of 46th Street here. Literally, you can see it from where we're standing. Some people like unions and some people don't. because it makes it more difficult to put on a show. So in terms of the specific history with Mr. Cohen and Actors Equity, I actually don't know. So on every single tour, we usually find something that I don't know. Usually it is not a great sign that it happens at the beginning of the tour. But today is a very special day that we've hit that one thing so early on in the tour. So let's check it out. I want to know.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, next up is going to be Miss Dara.
Hey, Frank. That was awesome. I felt like I was in Times Square.
Oh,
I really want your personal opinion of Times Square. What do you think? Give me the unfiltered version, Times Square.
So it's funny. A lot of times when my friends, I'll tell them, oh, I'm a tour guide. And often the very first thing they will say to me is, does that mean you have to spend time in Times Square? Like in that tone of voice. So it's like, there's just not a lot of reason to come here as a New Yorker. Unless you work here, it's very crowded. It's full of people all the time. It's mostly people from out of town. If you're going to a show, you'll walk through here. But otherwise, no, it's just very expensive. There's 2 restaurants in the Times Square area I would be seen eating at. I am happy to point them out to you. I know a lot of people are staying here in the area. But otherwise, yeah, I'm either walking through it or next to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a polite way to respond. Yeah. Got you.
Fantastic. All right, and last but certainly not least, Miss Val.
What Broadway shows have you been in?
Wonderful. So I actually give our Broadway tour. And on the Broadway tour, we have all sorts of really cool people. So you could get my friend Philip, who is a really cool kind of stand-up sketch comedian. We have a wonderful other Allison tour guide who is sort of a triple threat. She sings a lot during the tour. There won't be no singing from me today because the person that you have today is, I'm sorry?
So you weren't in a Broadway show?
No, I was not in a Broadway show. I'm a writer and sometimes an actor. I've worked a lot of off-Broadway. We're still working toward Broadway, It's very, very difficult to make it.
Show, though?
I'm sorry?
Go to a Broadway show theater?
If you buy a ticket, absolutely you're going to go inside a Broadway theater. But unfortunately on the tour today, we can't just poke a head in if we're not supposed to be there. So we won't be able to actually go inside of a theater today. But I really want to encourage you to find the right show for you so that you'll be able to go inside one of the theaters.
Thank you, Frank.
Fantastic. Well, Frank, you said you had a question for us real quick.
Oh, is that the Duffy statue? I don't remember what it looks like.
Oh, that is George M. Cohen. You are.
Oh yeah, I thought it was the Cohen statue, but it was from, because our tours start from the other direction. I was like, is that something else? Okay.
Duffy's the one that has like the cross behind him, right?
Yeah, I know it has the cross behind it, and that's how I know it. But I was, okay, viewers, I haven't given a tour in 3 months. Sometimes you forget what things look like. I should have said that after the scores were in.
New York is at a stay-at-home order due to the COVID-19 quarantine. So,
yes.
Well, our last contestant, Miss Helen, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
All right. Well, I have your slide up and ready over here, so I'm going to share it. Remember, you get a chance to take a look at it before we start the 2-minute timer. So here we go. All right, Helen, do you see the monument in front of you? Let me go ahead and put 2 minutes on the timer. And remember, it's not just about the monument itself, it's who it was built to commemorate. So on the count of 3, 3, 2, and 1.
Well, hello and welcome to Washington Square in the Village. So what we have in front of us is the Washington Square Arch, and believe it or not, it is based loosely on the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. If you've been to Paris, you may notice that the Arc de Triomphe is way bigger, and it has also 4 legs. This one has only 2, but it is based on that. And it was built to commemorate the 100th year of the American Revolution. And it is built to commemorate George Washington. to glorify George Washington. And so you have statues. See, you have two statues on the side there, and they are statues of George Washington. You have George Washington at war, and you have George Washington at peace. So for our friends who are not native from the United States, as I often have, yes, yes, people are very, very active, in Washington Square. Washington Square is the 50s, right? Hello, hi there. Is the site where a lot of musicians and poets, and artists, have been playing outside, right? And so it's in the summer, very, very active, very, very noisy, in a pleasant way, right? And there's a big fountain where people gather around, yes? So again, this is originally, it was made of wood. And then people liked it so much that they built a real one in stone permanently. And this is also the start of Fifth Avenue. Yes, yes, yes. The avenue that you see from the other side, because in there is Fifth Avenue. The famous one is starts here, indeed. So yes, George Washington, for the people who are from France, is the guy on the $1 bill. Yeah, first president of the United States.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Helen. Let me go ahead and take the slide down and turn off this alarm. All right, so judges, are you ready to ask your questions? All right, well, because we have Miss Dara up first.
Hi, Helen.
Hello.
It was nice to hear the French accent talking about that. I wish I could have taken one of your tours in person. Let's see. Greenwich Village. Does it feel reminiscent of Paris to you, other than the Arc? Is there anything else
Sorry, the entire park, you mean?
Well, the park and the Arc, like the surrounding atmosphere. Is it similar?
Some parts, maybe, indeed. There is a lot of gardens in Paris, a lot of little parks and gardens. And so some of it, yes, indeed, because there is a mix of architecture. It was remodeled, actually, a few years ago to be like the original, plan of Washington Square. And they put all indigenous plants in there, and then some very old tree, one of the oldest tree that's 300 and I don't remember, 7 years old or whatever is there. And so in that sense, it has like a European park feel, indeed. And then I used to live, by the way, 1 block away from Washington Square for 19 years. And so it was, I used to walk through there all the time and stuff like that. It has like a feel of some Parisian little park. Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Well, next up, Miss Val.
Is Washington Square Park a place where there have been like a lot of protests and parades and stuff like that? I think that I heard that.
So parades, I don't know. I mean, it used to be a military ground at some point. At some point, it was way above the city limit, right? The center of the city was way down, to the point that it was used as mass graves, actually, for epidemics. I'm a public health specialist, so people were fleeing the plagues, right? And so when you dig, they still have skeletons under there because they never completely, each time you dig up. So first it was like a Native American place. And so there were some graves from there. And then they were used as mass graves at some point because it was away from the city. Then the city caught up. And then it became, like a way for rich people to flee the plagues, right, of the slum of the city, as they didn't tell them that the bodies had never been removed, by the way. At some point before that, it was a military site, so I'm sure they had military parades there for sure. And then the city caught up, of course. And then in the 60s, it was the Bohemian Center, the village was the Bohemian Center. Bob Dylan lived just at the corner, in the Washington Square Hotel there, stuff like that. So there was a lot of, I'm sure there were a lot of protests of the women's movement, of the, or the civil rights movement of the time. And at some point, I know that Robert Moses wanted to destroy everything. And he wanted to have a big highway or a big road or something like go through it, right? And so there were protests about that, because clearly it didn't happen. And then like a lot of parades, I don't know, like the gay parade sometimes end there. Sometimes it depends what the route is, but the Halloween parades, gay pride occasionally, it depends. Each year is different. This year, of course, is very different. Sometimes they end there. They go down, Fifth Avenue, and then they arrive at Washington. But it's not true every year. It depends on the route.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. All right. Last but certainly not least, Mr. Remy.
First of all, I have forgotten to give feedback after everyone. Allison and Frank, you were lovely as always. And Helen, the same goes for you. It's going to be a tough competition. You guys are all stars for sure. So that was me as Remy, but here I'm gonna pretend to be a tourist now. Who designed the Washington Square Arch?
Who designed it? Yeah, I think it is the white meat and, like this, they're always the same guy, right? At some point, I'm mimicking your accent because why not? From Germany maybe or something, Austria. And so, yeah, it is the white meat and I always remember the last one, famous architect, of the time, yes. In the 1800s, they built a lot in the city, right? And so, but again, it was a wooden one, originally made of wood, from the tree. And then it was, people say, oh, nice, good. And so, yes, we're going to build real one with the stone.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Judges, go ahead and make sure that you tabulate all your scores for round one. So that we can announce our two contestants moving on to the next round. And for anyone watching, Experience First has a series of live shows that happen every single week during this quarantine time period. And we talked a little bit about France and Paris on here. We actually have a location in Paris, and some of our guides have not only been doing some live shows from their apartments, but they've been taking people on live walks through the city during quarantine. So very cool to check out. Head to Experience First or exp1.com/fromhome, and you can see an entire slate of all of the at-home experiences that you can watch. And I'll selflessly plug that every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time is me and Miss Linda with Visiting Broadway. We don't actually go to Broadway, but we talk a lot about it. So judges, are you ready? Fantastic. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take a look right now to see who our two contestants moving to the next round are.
You all were amazing.
Oh my goodness, you were all fantastic. In fact, you were so fantastic. Ladies and wait a second.
What I found the most amazing was all of you and your ability to pivot, like whatever. If you don't know the answer, that's fine, because now we're actually going to talk about this other thing. And by the end of it, I thought that was the question I had asked you. So good job.
Yeah, I find if you just start talking about something else, you either think of the answer eventually, or by then we've moved on.
Yeah.
It's an insider tip.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Yes? No? Maybe?
Yes.
All right. With an average of, out of 10 points, 8.333333333, is the winner of round one, Miss Helen. Congratulations. Everybody applaud. Oh, I can hear it. Fantastic. Now our runner-up, also moving to round two with a score of 8.16666666667 is Miss Allison Munn. Everyone, please give her a round of applause. Well, thank you, AJ. Now, unfortunately, Frank Paiva, we have to say, AJ, are you going to say it?
Yes.
Well, with the lowest score, not by much, by 0.116766, all of those things, with an average of 8 out of 10 points. Frank, you have
been axed.
Sad.
Frank, but we will maybe see you again on a future episode. But moving on to round two of a Memorial Day.
Does that mean I have to leave? Have I been excommunicated?
No, you don't have to leave, but maybe just mute yourself for a second.
Okay, cool.
All right, fantastic. So ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to round 2. Now, as a tourist visiting New York City on a holiday like Memorial Day, you are spending your entire day running from subway to subway and running through Central Park to see all of these famous monuments that when you get hungry, you might not have a chance to stop at a restaurant to get food. So luckily for a lot of New Yorkers, we are famous for the various food carts that you can find through the city. So the theme for round 2 is going to be famous New York City food carts. Oh, it looks like our contestants, it's a little bit harder than round 1.
That is a hard category, Bobby.
Oddly specific.
Oddly specific. Well, our tourists got to eat. Now, it looks like our contestants might be a little concerned here. But like I said, if you don't
I'm going to say goodbye, Bobby. I used to give a food cart tour. I cannot sit here and watch this. I'm going to go make some dinner. Y'all are beautiful. I love Helen. I love Allison. Book a tour with them. Book a tour with Experience first. And I'm going to get some takeout. You're beautiful people.
Bye.
Bye, Frank.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So first up this round is going to be Miss Helen. Okay. Now, if you know about the food cart or the type of food that they serve at this food cart, you are more than welcome to expand upon that with the knowledge that you have. If you don't, you better make up something good. So are you ready to see your food cart?
Yes.
Before we begin, I'm so sorry. Dara, are you updating the score sheets?
I did. Yeah, everything's cleared out. So we're in round 2. You'll see Helen's first up. Allison. Okay. Is it updated on your side? Everything's cleared out.
Yeah, the green is still there, but I guess.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll block
cool.
that out.
Sounds good. Sorry, guys. Technical. Yes.
All right.
All good, judges?
Yeah? Everyone good? Fantastic. Helen, here is your food cart. Now, Helen, go ahead and take a look.
Oh, yeah.
Iconic New York City food cart. Let me go ahead and put 2 minutes on the timer. And 3, 2, and 1.
So yes, welcome to the culinary part of our tour. And so this is the roasted nut caramelized nut cart, kind of ubiquitous in New York City, and you can detect them by the smell, the delicious smells of roasted nuts that grabs you. And actually, so they have typically several types of nuts, from the cheapest, which is the peanut, not a nut, by the way, but a legume. Okay. And then they have almonds and sometimes cashew. And these are sometimes a little bit more expensive, but still a very reasonable price. And so they roast them in a mixture of like sugar and honey and stuff like that. And it's all caramelized and delicious. And so it is a great alternative to other foods because it really, like
nuts. I go nuts for nuts. Every time I see him spend a few bucks on nuts.
And then sometimes you have like a street wrapper, New York City that goes along, right? And so I actually do eat this kind of thing all the time when I'm on the go because I think it's a very healthy snack. And because it's cooked, you don't have any health issue, and it's relatively cheap, and it's warm. So in the winter, you can, have the little warm bag like in your hand, and then you support, New York City activity by buying it. So I totally recommend that as a snack or even as a little lunch. Again, very healthy. Little sugar, so give you a little bit of a kick, right? But like a nice cup of coffee, right? And your little bag of roasted nuts, and you're good to go for your next adventure.
Fantastic. Thank you, Helen. All right. So, judges, we are going to start with Miss Dara. Go ahead and ask Helen your questions.
Helen, do you ever share your nuts with the squirrels?
I was a little scared of where it was going in there for a while. but yeah, so I do actually share nuts with squirrels. So again, in Europe, we don't have the squirrels. Okay, we have other type of squirrels. They're wild, they don't come. And so every time I have tours with European people, French people, especially kids, and we go in a place where there's a parky type of area, I call on the squirrel and they come. Of course, they're used to it, right? In places where there's a lot of tourists, like Statue of Liberty or whatever, the squirrels are like, oh yeah, that's what I live. I'm not scared of tourists. It's like, you know. And so they come, you go, poof, they come, they climb. And so kids are like, oh my God, you know, and they take picture. And I often have something in my bag, you know, because nuts are actually my go-to as a snack. And so whether they're roasted nuts or not, and then sometimes I give it to the kids, you know, I tell them how to give it to and the squirrels are like so used to it, they're like, yes, give me the, and then, and funny story, I mean, if you have the time, it's like sometime once I gave, you know, so I called the squirrel comes, yes, tourist, goodie. And then I didn't have nuts that day, I just had bread. Good bread, by the way, like fancy bread. And so I give a little piece of the bread and the squirrel was like, nah. And like, it's like, who do you think
picky,
I am?
Picky.
Well, thank you, Dara. Next up, Val, go ahead and ask Helen about her nuts.
Helen, did they deliver? What food delivery apps can I get the nuts on? Can you help me find that app?
So I'm not sure there's actually deliver because they're food carts, right? So they have a license. You know, you have to be licensed to have a food cart in the street. But you may be able to have nuts, you know, delivered to your house through Whole Foods on Amazon, or you had there's stores called the Nut Box in New York City, or nut stores or whatever, where they have a kind of, so I'm sure they would deliver. I don't know if they may have the roasted kind, but they would not be hot. They would not be warm, you know, by the time they arrive to your house. But I'm sure like a quick blink in the microwave and voila.
Well done.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Remy.
Oh, Helen, you're such a delight as a tour guide and trainer and as a tourist. When I visit, I always look for humor in my tour guides, and I gotta say, you certainly had that. You made me laugh, and that's a big selling point for me. My question for you is, as if I were a tourist, I'm allergic to nuts. What other snacks do you recommend I try out in New York?
Okay. So again, peanuts are not nuts. You might be allergic to them, but
I am allergic to legumes too.
Legume. Okay, very good. Just
everything that Nuts for Nuts sells, I'm allergic to.
Very good. And so there are many other options. You have places where people actually lunch from food carts, right? And so they have ethnic options. I love, for example, falafel. They are made from chickpeas, so I don't know if that works for you or not. Also a legume, it might not work for you. But
what's a chickpea? I've never been to New York before. Is that a New York thing?
Not at all. It is a universal thing. In many universes, there are chickpeas. Well known. Okay. And so it's more like Middle Eastern type of stuff, but I think it's a legume. So you might want to stay away from that. Otherwise, a delicious and cheap option. They have all kind of hot dog stands. Very New Yorky, you know, your basic hot dogs. And then you can have stuff put on it, you know, like relish, which is weird to me, and mustard, whatever is your jam, really. And then there are fruit smoothies, and then there are all kind of ethnic stuff. Vietnamese, you know, banh mi, this kind of stuff, right? So you can find places where they have a collection of these, and so you can choose.
Thank you. For the record, I am not allergic to nuts or legumes. I love Nuts for Nuts. That was acting.
Oh my God, you are so good. I believe that you were definitely allergic to every legume on earth.
And believe it or not, I know what a chickpea is. It was just to throw you.
Incredible.
Yes, thank you. Great job. Thank you.
Well, all the experienced first employees have many talents, ladies and gentlemen. Judges, please go ahead and finalize your scores for Helen. Trying to think of something to kind of jam on here for a second. Like I've mentioned a couple times, New York City is under quarantine at the moment. But I know that all New Yorkers, once the virus calms down and a vaccine is made available, are itching to get back to normal in the city and welcome all of you wonderful people back in with open arms. There are so many monuments, even ones that we didn't discuss today, probably the most famous being the Statue of Liberty, that is there waiting for you. As soon as it is safe to come back to New York City, ladies and gentlemen, Liberty will light the way. All right, judges, have you tabulated your scores? Fantastic. So Allison.
Yes.
Are you ready to see your iconic New York City food?
I am, but I just want to say one thing before we start. I don't know if anyone noticed that the wall behind me had a bunch of paintings on it and it's now empty.
Oh.
Welcome to New York City living. My next door neighbors have been pounding on the wall for the past few days, and literally in the middle of this, they came slamming down.
No, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Well, we are almost done, and you can figure out how you're going to sue your neighbors to replace the photos from your wall. Oh my
Hope you're okay.
Let me know if you need help writing a passive-aggressive note.
Oh, thank you very much. If you want to, you can write one for the disco queen upstairs who's been playing Tainted Love, I think now at least 200 times during quarantine.
I've seen you post about that on Facebook, Allison. All right, are you ready to see
I am ready.
Food cart? Okay, this is a good one. So, Allison, here you go. Oh, there we go.
I don't see anything.
All right, Allison, do you see your food cart?
Yes, the Holla guys.
Okay,
Oh.
so let me go ahead and put 2 minutes on the clock. Yeah?
Okay.
Fantastic. In 3, 2, 1.
Oh my gosh, the Holla guys. Yes, at some point you have to try some of their food. Some of these Holla food carts are so popular that at lunchtime you'll see New Yorkers themselves lining up waiting for 20 or 30 minutes just to get something from their Holla cart. I'll be very honest with you right now. I have a ton of food allergies, including a gluten allergy. So I'll be honest, I've never tried it, but I can't tell you how many people are just like, oh my gosh, some of the best food I've ever had. You'll find them all over New York. This food cart looks like, I think this is on 6th Avenue, but I know there's a ton of them, like I said, all over. There's a bunch of them up on the Upper East Side, a ton in Lower Manhattan. So anytime you're touring somewhere, especially at lunchtime, keep an eye out. I think one of my favorite things about the food carts is actually seeing them get picked up and get them delivered, because these food carts can't stay here all night. And some of them, my understanding is they only have a license to be there for a certain number of hours. And so you'll see all of these trucks coming in and the food carts getting hauled out. And
Praise the Lamb sauce! Praise the Lamb sauce!
Yes. Always a show on this. And there's always someone with some music to show off. I love it. Speaking of that, my upstairs neighbor loves to share his music. But back to the food carts. I think one of my favorites is seeing them try to merge into traffic coming in and out. But definitely during lunchtime, try to check these guys out. They're on so many blocks, and like I said, from what I've heard from so many people, it's a great meal, and New Yorkers themselves will line up just to get a meal from one of these food carts.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Allison. All right, so we are going to start with questions from our judges, and we're going to start this time with Miss Val. So Val, whenever you're ready.
Isn't it dirty though, like to eat food on the street like that? Like, how do you make sure it's not dirty?
They all have to be licensed. They have to pass inspections, all of that stuff. Don't worry about it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Val. All right, Mr. Remy, you are up.
Oh, Allison, you're always so clear and so engaging, and I always love seeing your tours. And I love that even though you haven't tried it, you showed enthusiasm. So I really enjoyed that. Oh goodness, what should my question be? Since you like the guy who was allergic to nuts and legumes and everything, since you're allergic to many things, what are some of your favorite things that are good for your food allergies in New York?
So for my food allergies, there's actually a number of places that provide things like gluten-free pizza. And the number one thing I would recommend to any tourist with a gluten allergy is download. There's a number of apps out there that provide you, literally they find your location and they're like, here's some restaurants, some pickup places around you that will show you where to go. And it's a really, really fantastic tool when you're in a city that you've never been in before to help you find places.
Fantastic. Actually, can you give our viewers the name of one of the apps? Do you know what off the top of your head?
I use Find Me Gluten Free.
Okay.
It is a user-based app. Sometimes, the information on there is wrong, so I usually call the restaurant ahead of time. But it's helped me all around the world. I was in Paris a few months ago, took many of our tours out there, and definitely used my app to find all the gluten-free crepes across Paris. So.
Amazing.
Definitely.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Miss Dara.
Hi. I super am curious about the Halal Guys. Is it one company? Is it franchised? Is it just a bunch of people that have the same logo? I have never eaten there, sadly. But I really am. Is it one business? Do you know?
Oh my gosh. I am not the kind of tour guide to tell you stuff if I don't know it. And to be honest, this is something I've never wondered about. So I actually don't know. This is something that I'm going to have to go learn myself. And I'd love to follow up with you once I find the information.
Please.
Right. A lot of logos are the same. And you'll even see sometimes on the streets, you'll see like 3 Halal guys next to each other. And I'm like, what good does that do? You know,
like, do they all have a halal meeting? I don't get it. Who knows these secrets?
I'll definitely have to reach out to my friends who know even more about food carts than I do and get back to you.
Thank you.
I'm with you, Allison. I don't make stuff up.
Well, I do. So judges, go ahead and tabulate your scores so we can determine today's winner. Unless perhaps we have a tie, and then we can go into a sudden death round. But I do actually know the answer to that question. The Halal Guys is an actual company. And they don't just exist in New York, and they don't exist just as food carts. They do in New York City, but here in beautiful Las Vegas, where I currently reside, there is a Halal Guys restaurant inside Caesar's Palace, and it is quite fancy. In fact, that's true for a lot of New York City institutions that decide to make their way to Las Vegas. They are very fancy here. And but they're not back home. So like another one, viewers, is Old Homestead. For any of my tour guide friends who've toured people around Chelsea, Highline area, Old Homestead is right there by the Big Apple store. It is a very old, I think it's the oldest steakhouse in New York City. It's very rustic and old. It's not a, you know, it's a very nice steakhouse, but I wouldn't say it's very modern and fancy. But at Caesar's Palace, it is very swanky and fancy with big neon lights, because everything has to be that way in the city. So you can get the Halal Guys in other cities. I think you can do it in London. I imagine you might be able to do it in places like Paris, around the world. It is a worldwide thing now. But if you want the OG authentic experience, it's the food carts in New York City. All right, judges. Oh, question. Yeah.
I'm just going to butt in and say that I think one of the most awesome things about knowing so many tour guides is that we all have different information. And I love that you just shared that. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Always more to learn from each other.
Throw it in there and just, you know, whatever. And bide some time while my judges tabulate all the scores.
Yeah, just one more minute.
One more
just a minute.
Waiting. Bobby, is there still a Serendipities 3 in Las Vegas by Caesar's Palace?
No, that is now Hell's Kitchen, the Gordon Ramsay restaurant.
Okay.
From some episodes of the TV show. I still think they filmed most of it in a studio, I think in LA.
Are you in Vegas right now, Bobby?
I have been in Vegas since October. Yes.
Right. I knew that. Oh, great. Cool.
For the moment, I am quarantining by myself. Nope. Allison, what's up?
I was just saying I was on an episode of Hell's Kitchen that filmed in New York City.
Oh, were you really?
Yes. Gordon Ramsay is a very nice man. It's such a god.
That's what I've actually heard from a lot of people. It's a lot of it's for TV, but it's also for people who are trained cooks. He expects chefs who have gone through training and things like that to have a certain caliber. But I think you can get an idea of like his real personality when you watch him like with kids. You know, he's so gentle and kind with kids. And I hear that he's just lovely. You know, when he goes to restaurants to really try to help them, like I just hear if people are open about fixing things, he's just the loveliest and most kind person. So I'm glad to hear that firsthand from you, Ellen. That's great. Judges, yeah, we ready?
I'm good.
All right, so I'm going to take a look. And drum roll, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, with a score of 8.833333333, the winner of round 2 in today's episode. Are you ready? Are you ready to hear it?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yes. Is Miss Helen. Everybody please give her Now, Helen,
it was the bird nut story. Just really.
The what nut story? Sorry?
Just the birds and the nuts, you know.
Squirrels. But it was very close, Allison. So thank you for participating in today's episode. Helen, you have actually won a real tangible prize for today's episode. So after the episode, you're going to connect with Miss Dara, give her your address, and this will get shipped to you. So call. You have won Clorox. Oh my
How
goodness.
appropriate!
Yes.
It's worth gold.
Those are hard to get, Dara. Where'd you get
Cash
them?
value.
I got my secret stash. I was one of those early
You will
hoarders.
get your
No, just kidding. That's not me.
wipes shipped to you. And you are also invited to appear in 2 weeks on the All-Star New York City Battle to win the official title for New York City's Best Tour Guide. So viewers, we will go back with Miss Jen Andres, Miss Helen Zisner, and the winner of next week's competition, where we will have 3 brand new tour guides competing for the final spot in the New York City Battle Royale. All right, judges, contestants, please say goodbye to everyone watching today. And viewers, thank you for joining us for this episode of So You Think You Can Tour Guide, the New York edition. Have a great day and be safe, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank
you.
Next time.